खुदा ने खिलखिलाते रंग निहायती ही चंद बनाए हैं, उनमें से सबसे मोहक आज हमारे कार्यक्रम में आए हैं. A very good afternoon to all present here. I, Anuja Saklani,
and I, Sharmishta Sharma,
student mentors of DME NSS Cell, welcome you all today. We have assembled here virtually on account of World Nature Conservation Day. It is celebrated on the 28th of July every year. The aim behind celebrating World Nature Conservation Day is to encourage people to conserve nature by conserving natural resources like water, fuel, air, minerals, soil, wildlife, etc. for our future use and also for our future generation. This day also makes us aware about how nature imbalance is causing problems like deforestation, degradation of land, soil erosion, etc. The theme of the World Nature Conservation Day 2021 is Forest and Livelihood, Sustaining People and Planet, around which the whole observation of this year will revolve.
Delhi Metropolitan Education is a premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi, and approved by Bar Council of India. Our institute sets the standard for media, law, and management education. Our campus is committed to improving the health and quality of life for all our students and beyond. In our college, we have the NSS unit, which is popularly known as National Service Scheme, a central sector scheme of Government of India, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. It provides opportunity to the student youth of graduate and postgraduate at colleges and university level of India to take part in various government-led community service activities and programs. The sole aim of NSS is to provide hands-on experience to young students in delivering community service. We are fortunate to be a part of the DME fraternity and thankful to be working under the guardianship of Vice Chairman Sir, Shri Aman Sahani Sir, Director General, Honorable Justice Bhava Singh Sir, Director Ravikant Swami Sir, Head of Academics, DME Law School, Professor Dr. Bhavesh Gupta Sir, Academic Coordinator, DME Law School, Dr. Rajendra Randhava Ma'am, DME NSS faculty conveners Dr. Smita Gupta ma'am and Ms. Shanu ma'am for providing their constant support in all the endeavors of DME NSS cell. I request Director Ravikant Swami sir to welcome the guests and address the gathering on the occasion of World Nature Conservation Day.
I'm sorry to say, ma'am, but the director said due to some important work, he has not been able to join. So please excuse Sharmishta.
No Let's get on to work.
But he has conveyed his greetings to you and thank you for visiting or coming to our college on this online platform.
No problem, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So we can start our talk.
If there's a short introduction of yours, so we would like to first go with that.
Okay, I love to listen about myself. Tell me.
Now, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our esteemed guest speaker of the event, Dr. Livleen K. Kehlon, who has taken time off her busy schedule to deliver this lecture for us. Dr. Livleen leads the Environment Education and Awareness Program at TIHRI. She has a vast experience of working in fields of environment research, outreach, and conservation education. She joined TIHRI in 2002, and since then has been actively engaged in creating a Nike for environment education, both within the organization and outside. Green Olympiad is a major project being implemented under her direct supervision. She has experimented and implemented several programs around basic education designs and innovative multidisciplinary ideas for youth of all age groups. Catching them young is the motto behind activities designed under the banner of environment education at TIHRI, and the focus is on channelizing energy of youth towards sustainable development goals.
Ma'am works closely with CBSE, NCERT, and various educational boards promoting TERI's environment education initiatives through these channels of governance. As an active member of her working group, she is involved in bringing out several books, newsletters, workbooks, manuals, films, and other IEC material. Ma'am is a member of ESD ExpertNet, which is a leading network of environment educators based in India, Germany, Mexico, and South Africa. Prior to joining TERI, she has worked with WWF India and NISCAIR in similar capacities. Ma'am, we extend our gracious welcome and invite you to kindly deliver the lecture. And I would also request the audience that if they wish to ask questions, they may direct it to me through the chat box. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sharmishta. Thank you, Anuja. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Wonderful listening to all of you. So what we will, and I see we have 56 participants, 55 participants, including me. So what I will do is I will share with you a presentation. And while I'm talking, I'll try to see that I don't read up the slides, and you have to write down what you want to ask me after the presentation is over. So it was quite a challenge when I got this invitation, because I came to know that you're all students of law and management. And law and management are two topics that I have not touched in my academics. So I tried to do justice to your competencies.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. We have some journalism students also, ma'am, GMC.
Lovely. So journalism also. So another problem for me. So I know very less about journalism, law, and management. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about nature conservation, and I will try to see that I can link it to your understanding about the different academic subjects that you are studying. And at the end of it, I think you will all agree with me when we say that nature conservation is indeed an intellectually, socially, and personally transformative experience. And this is a line that I got through the invite that came from your college. And it's very encouraging to see that an institution like DME, which is doing so well in academics, is also socially conscious and is looking at these particular aspects when it comes to the world around us. So students, we'll take a pause here and let me reinforce to you that today, being July 28th, is World Nature Conservation Day. And this World Nature Conservation Day acknowledges that we are all living in an environment that is, while challenging us towards survival, is also providing a lot of opportunities and resources for us to stay in harmony and sync with the nature around us. So as Aldo Leopold said, what is conservation? Conservation is a state of harmony between man and land. And this resource sharing between humans and the nature around us is all what is harmony all about. And this is what conservation is all about. You can see my slides, please.
Yes, ma'am, they are visible.
Great. So here I want to ask you a question, and while I'm asking you a question, I'll also give you an answer. There are two words that we commonly use: preservation and conservation. So what is the basic difference between conservation and preservation? If we say that we are working towards preservation of this architectural structure, is it a right usage, or do we have to say conservation? So from now, forever in life, be clear about a thing, conservation is related to life and nature. And when we speak about preservation, we are speaking about physical infrastructures like buildings, objects, landscapes. So conservation, when we say conservation of nature, we are talking about conservation of life. And automatically, if we try to link the physical manifestation of certain conservation issues, that is not true, because that is not conservation. If you are protecting your immediate house, or you're protecting your building, or you're protecting your transport system, you are not conserving, you are actually preserving. So this is a difference that you should always be aware about. So a few questions and maybe the answers you can put in your chat box. It will be interesting to have a question answer session. This is something I really miss in online sessions, because I can't see who are my audience. So are you an environmentally friendly person? So very easy to say yes or no. But how do I check that you are environment friendly? There has to be certain indicators. So what I have done is, there are certain things that you do or you don't do. So maybe while I'm talking, you can say yes, no, you agree, you don't agree. This is something we should not do, but this is a checklist. So are you an environmentally conscious person? And if you say yes, so let me ask you that what about the chargers and appliances that you use at home? Do you unplug them when they're not in use, or all we do is we take out our phone and move on, and the plug is left there, kept on a charging mode? Another thing, now the weather is so pleasant. Are we still sitting under air conditioners, or have we opened up the windows and allowed a little bit of cross ventilation? What about sunny hours? If we need light, do we switch on the artificial lights, or we go out and we see that we open the shades and work with nature? So these are a few things that we need to be very conscious about. And if we do it as a practice, it will become a regular habit for us. And yes, only then we can say we are an energy conscious person, and we are contributing our bit towards nature conservation. So how is electric conservation, electric efficiency linked with nature conservation, is what I will come to later. Now, food wastage. So what about food wastage? The year 2021, on the theme of the International Youth Day on 12th August is no to food waste. So food waste is another thing that we see all around us. We indulge in this. Some of us try to reduce it, but most of us, we try to ignore it, that it could be somebody else's plan to conserve or see that food is not wasted. So the least we can do is, let us not generate waste and throw covers and opt for non-reusable containers. We should not use plastic straws, plastic silverware, plates, and throw them all over. And whenever we go to the market, we should always have a shopping list ready with us. So this compulsive buying of items when we are in a mall, just putting into a basket is something that we need to clearly avoid. Now, again, a question comes to us, how is it related to nature conservation? So wait. Saving fuel. This is another area. So you are located in sector 62 of Noida, if I'm not wrong, and some of you might be staying in Dwarka. So I'm sure you would be crossing around 15-20 red lights when you reach office, when you used to travel. Right now we are all at home. So what did you do when the vehicle was on a red light area? Do you leave the engine on or off? This is another small initiative that you can do, which can help you to conserve fuel. And then what about opting for carpooling and ride sharing? Do you do it more often, or you don't do it? You like to travel all on your own, the luxury of a vehicle to yourself, and then when you are moving on a day-to-day basis, your bills of petrol are scaling up, and you realize that you're also wasting a lot of time. And maybe if you take a direct metro from Dwarka to ride over to Noida, you will be conserving a lot of fuel. Walk and cycle. Indulge in more activities that will keep you more fit, and also it will help you in saving the fuel. Okay, so another thing that we can look at is consuming less paper. This was very much true when the colleges were actually operationalizing. We tend to take a lot of material, printouts, leave them here and there, take multiple copies, do photocopying. So all this is a lot of consumption of paper. And where does paper come from? It comes from trees. So are we supposed to waste paper, or are we supposed to conserve paper? So please see to it that we minimize our wastage of paper, and whenever you have to take a printout, think before you do it. Recycle used paper, recycle one-sided paper, and subscribe to digital magazines. These things could look very easy and simple for you. I cannot move the slide. I think I'll have to go back to the video mode. Okay. So after consuming less paper, what is the next thing that we have in mind? So that is living in harmony with nature. So how can we live in harmony with nature when we are living in a multi-rise apartment? We do not stay near a forest. We don't have an open area next to our house. So still you can be in harmony with nature. We see a lot about terrace, read a lot about balcony farming, terrace farming, soil-free culture of different plants, edible vegetables that we use in our kitchen. That is, you're of course harvesting your own food. And also, whenever you have to buy something, be conscious that it is organic or it is not created by destroying a life form. And then again, plantation of flowers for birds, bees, and pollinators is very, very essential, because bees is a species that is highly threatened by human activities, and to have a very robust and healthy population of bees, we need to have a very robust population of flowers. So these are certain things that we should do. So after all these things, I will go back to the chat and see how many of you have responded over there. Let me ask you about approach that I said, like I do not know much about journalism or for law for that matter. So am I competent enough to talk about environment education to a group of students who are not academically working in an environment or biological space? So this is a very, very important question. And here is where I want to touch upon an interdisciplinary learning. All of you would go into a work sphere very soon after you graduate from your colleges, and that is where your competencies on knowing multiple subjects will be able to help you to secure jobs and to retain jobs. Why? Because at the end of it, we are just not students of a particular core competent academic subject, but we are students of sustainability science. And what is sustainability science? Sustainability science is an integration of natural, social sciences, humanities, economics, then biology, physical sciences, all subjects that we know about, well integrated in our understanding of a subject that is socially and culturally appropriate, environmentally sustainable, and leading to economic development is a subject under the sphere of sustainability science. And yes, if we are conscious about all this, we have attended today's lecture where I'm going to get into a little bit of more biology about nature conservation. We will be a student of sustainability science. And when you go for your interviews, you can very confidently talk about, if somebody asks you that what is your carbon footprint, what have you done to protect any resource, a natural resource, you can mention some of the topics which I have just spoken till now. So after sustainability science, there again, why is interdisciplinary learning so important? Interdisciplinary learning is very, very important because we have 10 forms of intelligence that is endowed on human beings. And this intelligence, if you see, I may not read all that: naturalist intelligence, existential intelligence, linguistic intelligence, musical intelligence. So every human being is born intelligent. We cannot categorize based on our specializations that a student of science is more intelligent than a student of liberal arts, or a student of liberal arts is more culturally conscious than a student of physics. We all have our competencies, and these core competencies rest on these recognized forms of intelligence. Plus and minus of each of these constitute a human being. And at one level of your living with the environment, at one level of living with the society, one form of intelligence will overshadow the other forms. But all of these are present in any in every individual who is living on this earth. Now, another concept: Malthusian theory of population. If you are a student of economics, if you are a student of sociology, you would have read about this. We know about the population growth, which is a geometric progression, and we know about the food production, which is an arithmetic progression. And what happens when both of these are existing in a living space? They try to compete with each other, and what is the end result? The end result is that always the food is less than the growth happening in a population. And because of this conflict between population and availability of food, natural, which is the positive checks, happen on earth, and also preventive measures are taken in consciously by a society which control the growth of population. But what is the result that we are looking at? We are looking at living in harmony with nature. And also, the next slide will again reveal a very interesting concept: is nature itself is a self-regulating organism. It is a superorganism, and whenever it senses that the growth of population is much, much high than the resources which are available to sustain the population, it automatically creates checks and controls like earthquakes, like famines, like floods, where the population starts coming down. It starts getting controlled. So this is what is there in the Malthusian essay on population. And as I said, this is a beautiful hypothesis given by James Lovelock, which is Gaia hypothesis. This talks about Earth being a living entity and being able to self-regulate the critical systems that support life, so that at any stage it is not there, the Earth vanishes. When the pandemic had started happening, we read a lot of articles. We don't have to worry about nature. We don't have to worry about Earth. Earth is able to sustain itself. It is us we are worried about. So the pandemic is a threat to our population. We will disappear. The Earth has sustained 4.5 billion years. It will live on. Why? Because Earth is a superorganism. Now, again, coming to this carrying capacity concept, both Malthusian theory and the Gaia's hypothesis, it talks about a carrying capacity. This is where equilibrium is maintained. Any further growth which tries to form an overlayer over this S-shaped growth curve is naturally checked by different outbreaks that happen, or the society consciously controls it over that stage, so that at any given stage, the population of a location, population of a continent, population of the entire planet does not supersede the carrying capacity available. Now, If we have to be conscious about Malthusian theory, about Gaia hypothesis, about carrying capacity, what have we to be conscious about? We have to be conscious about creating no waste. And why is waste so important? Because anything that is seen as a waste automatically gets thrown out of a cyclic system. And once it moves out of a cyclic system, it is of use to no one. So what happens if we buy, we buy a cloth, and the cloth lives its shelf life. It's able to, we can no longer use it. What will we do? We will throw it in the waste. Where will the waste go? The waste will be collected by the people, the rag pickers and all, and automatically it will get dumped into a landfill. And once in a landfill, that cloth will have no use. But if we were conscious enough when we saw that there was no immediate utility of using it directly, we could see that as a resource and convert it into a duster, a mopping scale, or something that is of some use. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to stretch the usability of that particular item. And what is that? That is about circular economy. What does circular economy propagate? It propagates, we increase an increase of income, reducing the resource dependency, that whenever we need something, we don't go and buy new, minimizing the waste and reducing the environmental footprint. So why footprint? I said we don't throw. It is not a use and throw culture, but it is use, reuse, reduce, recycle, refurnish, and then give it back to use by others. So at the end of it, we are creating a circle. We are creating a circle of usability, which is very, very important in sustaining life. Another topic that you should know about is sustainable development goals. Now, again, how are these related to nature conservation? Nature conservation is linked to biodiversity, it is linked to forests, and if we see all these 17 sustainable development goals, all of them are linked in one way or the other to biodiversity and conservation. And that is why nature conservation is very, very important to every human being who is living on this planet Earth. I will not explain the 17 sustainable goals. The purpose is to show all these figures so that something gets retained to you, and you, in the evening, you do some net surfing and create some notes. A copy of my presentation is also available with you, and you can go through it for more clarifications. Now, I spoke about different issues, and again I come back into nature conservation. But coming back to nature conservation, why is biodiversity an answer to several sustainable development challenges? What is sustainable development? Sustainable development is a development that rests on the pillars of environment, economic, and social development. And if all these three are to be met within the scope of biodiversity conservation, that is where we say we are looking at a holistic development of the society and not just one or two particular issues. My God, a very confusing slide, what it is all about. So biodiversity conservation, getting a little bit more into biodiversity conservation. Why is biodiversity important to us? Biodiversity is important to us because it is a part of these ecosystem services that nature gives to us for free. And what are these ecosystem services? These ecosystem services are 4 criteria of services, which is supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural. So these are the services that nature is providing to us free of cost. A very sad mention, we have all experienced shortage of oxygen during a very critical time of the pandemic. That is one we came across, those memes about planting trees and all. But why is it always that a critical situation brings us to a realization of the ultimate truth? And the ultimate truth is that nature bestows us with so many important things which we take for granted. Nature is there only if nature is around us, soil is formed. because soil is again a dynamic feature. If there was no soil, there would be no agriculture, there would be no food. So it is a supporting system. Then again, fresh food, the food that we take, the fruits that we consume, the water that we drink, the wood and fiber that is given is all natural services which are bestowed to us by nature. Regulating services, climate change, flood, disease regulation, water purification. You see a profile of soil, you will see a set of porous, non-porous soil, porous, non-porous sand profiles. And that is where water gets purified. That is where they say, and what about the topsoil? Topsoil is the humus. That is where it is most apt for growing of crops. But all the soil below that is contributing to water purification. The trees which are there, the forests that are there, they are all contributing to water purification, and then hence they are providing a regulating service. The cultural service. This is a service we often ignore. Culture to us right now is mostly what we see on our phone, on our computers and all, but culture is a lot above that. Culture is our identity and presence today. And why is culture linked to it? Because what we are is a part of the inheritance that we got from over generations. And whatever we learn now is what is going to be passed on to future generations. Ours was an age when we became young mothers and all. People used to talk about, oh wow, you know, our child, they hear a horn of a car and they are able to say which car is that. So that was considered to be a very important and intelligent trait of a child. Then another thing which we are now witnessing is the use of mobile phone. Oh, my 2-year child, they can easily scroll the phone and go to the game section and get into games. So is this the type of inheritance that we want our children to be knowledgeable about? What about the sounds of the birds, the beauty of the flowers, the fragrance of the balcony flowers that we used to see, how our grandmothers used to make pickles. Making pickles is a beautiful natural conservation strategy because you are conserving something for future use. And that conservation, that pickling process is not spoiling your food. So you tell me, how is a contribution from a grandmother not a very important service of nature, and we can just say this is something that used to happen and we are not knowledgeable about? So this is where I say cultural services is again a very important ecosystem services which is a part of our existence on the earth. Now, inheritance. Inheritance, when we talk of inheritance, we cannot miss out on the indigenous communities. Indigenous communities are sections of populations which are isolated, and they are in majority in certain countries. In certain other countries, they are completely wiped out. You would have all read about that tribe in Andamans about 2 years back, when they had sort of shot an arrow which killed an American missionary who was traveling there. So that is actually a sect in the Andamans. And where does that sect from Andamans come from? They have migrated from a common origin. And when they have migrated from a common origin, they have a particular knowledge, a particular inheritance of education which only they know. And that is why they are high on resilient. They know about climate and disaster risks, and they are able to adapt themselves and live in spite of the changes which are happening in the environment. Of date, there are about 370 million indigenous people still on the earth. And India itself, did you know that we have the second largest tribal population in the world after Africa? So if we have such a strong tribal population, and if I just speak about Odisha, it has 62 tribes, primitive tribes, which are there in the state itself. Imagine the vastness of indigenous knowledge which is there. and they form a part of a total population, and that is why we have the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, we have representation, we have articles that talk about conserving these people, because it is not about conserving people, it is also a topic of conserving the ancestral wisdom which is within these people. And why is it important? You want to talk about science. You see over here, it's in front of you. Wherever we have biodiversity hotspots, and hotspots are area which are rich in biodiversity, there is a strong footprint of indigenous populations. So what does it mean? It means that wherever the indigenous people are there, they will see to it that the biodiversity uh, is not affected. They will conserve their species. They believe in sacred groves. They believe in plants which cannot be cut. They believe in not fishing in certain parts of the year. So there is an automatic regulating mechanism. So when we speak about Gaia hypothesis, which is the earth is a superorganism, these human beings, they are also superorganisms. They automatically are able to regulate their requirements. They control their food intake. They do not take things which are not traditionally grown in those areas, and that is why they are automatically protecting biodiversity. So we city folks, what are we doing? Are we really the devils, or can we actually do something to help us being a part of nature? Yes, our knowledge itself is an enrichment process. We need to be knowledgeable about all these things so that in future, when we are into people from the law background, if you go on to become environmental lawyers, you do courses in your environmental legislations and all, these are things that you will have to be conscious about. People who are into journalism, you can write about green topics. Then similarly, the management people, you are the ones who are going to hold all the money. So you have to make wise decisions when you are on the board, that is any economically beneficial decision so great that it should overshadow the natural requirement of the area. So we have to be in sync with the nature. And at the end of it, humans can never outlive nature. So believe it, and always believe it, that nature will be able to change. There was this beautiful movie, I hope you have all seen it, which was it that was on the forest, the Mowgli's and all, jungle movie.
From the Jungle Book.
Yes. So there, what did we see? We saw how an elephant was able to make a passage for water flowing into the forest, which was able to extinguish a forest fire. So that is it. And elephants, they are a part of nature. They know what is the requirement. Will a forest wait for a fire brigade which has to go from New Delhi to Madhya Pradesh to blow out a forest fire? No. There have to be automatic regulating mechanisms. And that is why nature is going to outlive human beings. And at the end of it, nature is what we inherit. Our genetics, genetic framework, our phenotypes, our biological influences, they are all nature. And how we behave in a society, that is nurturing, that is the physical environment. We can be influenced partially by our immediate peers, but believe me, your inherent nature will never change. It will, at some stage or the other, if you have a dominant gene, it will overshadow the recessive genes and take over the physical manifestations. So nature always nurtures, and same is the case with biodiversity. India is, of course, a mega diverse country, and within Asia, we are of the 5 countries which are very, very rich in diversity. So let me give you an economic example. This was a very interesting study. I have quoted it over here. They actually accounted that it was based in Europe, that the people who were in close connect with bird species, they were getting satisfaction, which was earning them an additional $150 a month. So if we want to get into economics, if we want to see that growing so many trees is equal to getting so many cylinders, if we want to be so competent, we can even get into it. The econometrics of nature can also be done, and people have been doing it. But ideally, nature is something which soothes us and gives us a lot of importance. So this I will just run through. I will not go into details. I wanted to show these to you for you to read up. You might say our government is not doing enough. That is not the case. We need to get deep into these policies and be able to critique with good reading that this is what the government is doing and this is what which is additionally required. And everywhere right now we have a lot of scope about community groups coming up and helping the government to perform better. And at the end of it, nature conservation, yes, it is important, because even ecosystem restoration is a decade now from 2021 to 2030. And what is our government doing? And the work has anyway started from 2014 is we have the ambitious Namami Gange program. Read a little bit more about it. You will see how they are trying and seeing to it that the river Ganga is got back into its pristine condition and rejuvenated. This is very important for you. This is a green skill development program. There are NVIS centers across the country which are running these programs, and they train students to become competent to serve in skilling, green skilling initiatives. Again, all of these can be accessed from the MOEFCC website. This is the Green Skill Development Program. Very, very ambitious and very useful for you. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we all have been a part of the Pakhwadas, but always remember there are two components of it. One is the rural and one is the urban. So it is not that living in a city, we can go to a village and speak about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Even in our own municipalities, in our own wards, we have to see that waste is managed, and that is an initiative under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Nagar One scheme, another very ambitious scheme launched in 2020. Already Nagpur, Goa, Ranchi, Pune, they are a part of it, and they're seeing to it that certain urban forestscapes can be created. So a very, very scientific approach. Do read it up. Atul Bhujal Yojana, this is on improving the groundwater management, operational in many parts of the country. Read about it. These are issues, the journalist students, you can look at publishing and printing environment related topics in future. Similarly, the Jal Jeevan Mission, again an ambitious plan. It talks about bringing tap water, household tap connections to every household. Clean Air Program, another very ambitious plan, and the right to life is under Article 21, and the right to clean air needs to be covered under it. Okay, so is COVID-19 created in the lab, or is it a creation of nature? What happened? Why was it? This is a very big debate, and I'm sure it will take several years before we come to a logical conclusion. But one thing is scientifically established. There has been a movement of vector. Vector are organisms that host certain organisms. So what has happened is when species, the habitats of certain species like bats, for instance, are changed. Why? Because forests are cut down, trees are cut down, the bridges are converted, the habitats get changed. So what happens is these species move to newer areas. And when they move to newer areas, these also take with them a lot of organisms which were originally being hosted on them. And what does it cause? It causes a zootonic disease. So COVID-19 is a zootonic disease because what happened is there has been a change of the vector that was hosting this virus organism. How it happened, why it happened, let's spend some more time on reading about it. But wherever we come to it, like even if it was created in lab, how was it created in the lab? It was created in lab because there was some RNA source to it. How was the RNA extracted? It was extracted from a living organism. So it is a zootonic disease, and a lot of zootonic diseases will happen in future. So our Covishields and all these vaccines are not going to help us forever. We have to change our lifestyle. We have to go back living in harmony with nature. And all the post-COVID-19 recovery strategies have a very strong biodiversity and nature conservation element to it. Because we have to take our lessons from nature. Nature has survived. Did COVID pandemic destroy a forest? No, it did not. Did it destroy a complete species of tree? No, it did not. They had an automatic mechanism of shielding them from these attacks. So this is where we have to learn our lessons from, and we have to move forward. So as I was introduced, I am from TERI, and TERI has a very strong school and college program with students. So Youth Climate Conclave is one program which is going to soon start off. Another one which is already on is a project with SIF. This is again about youth and the next generation. We are going to give you a scope to write about it and digitally capture it. And once you're a part of this program, we have a lot of other activities ensured for you. And all of them are free of cost. Then another initiative is Changemakers for Climate Action. This is very, very challenging and interesting because it is based on a questionnaire. And the questionnaire doesn't have right or wrong answers. It is to check what is your perception about the environment, and that is where we are going to capture a youth perception on environment and take it forward in the COP26, which is to be hosted in November. So this will be made available for you. Geo for Youth, this is a costed initiative, and the deadline for registration is 31st July. I think the registration cost is 150 per participant. Very interesting program. Do check and see if you want to be a part of it. And these are the three websites from where you could capture all this information. What I will also do is I will copy this on the chat and I will leave it to Dr. Gupta to share with you at a later stage. So thank you very much. I did rush up on the last slides because I wanted to leave some time to speak to you. So over to you. Thank you so much. Your questions, discussions. And I've just copied these sections on the chat.
Wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'm sure there would be many of the questions to be flowing to you so that our students' inquisitiveness can be satisfied. Sharmishta, you can take over for the question answers session.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, a few questions we have received from the participants. So the first question is, what are the sustainable practices that can be taken up on daily basis by our students? And also, how can we motivate our society to be conscious towards nature conservation?
Okay, daily practices, most of the practices that I listed in my slides on energy, fuel, paper are daily practices. This is something that is very, very closely linked with us. When we get up in the morning, what is the first thing we do? We brush our teeth. So do we waste water when we brush our teeth? What do we do as the last thing when we sleep at night? Do we switch off our phone, or we leave it on on mode throughout the night, irrespective of the fact that it is already 99% charged? Daily practices are something that we do on a hour-to-hour basis. And wherever we are conscious that we do not want to create a waste, that is environmentally conscious practice. And what can you do for nature conservation? Grow more plants. This is a time, this is Van Mahotsav. Plant a sapling. Whenever you have to gift somebody, gift them a plant. And whenever you go and visit them, go to the balcony and see how well they have taken care of the gift you have given it to them. Create spaces, create things which bring happiness to them. and also which are a learning experience. And similarly, even by knowledge enrichment, if we start writing consciously blogs, we get attached to movements which are environmentally inclined. That is our daily contribution towards nature conservation. And write to us. These three opportunities I have shared with you. In future, whatever we are doing related to nature conservation, we'll definitely invite you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that will motivate our students that we will get invitations and we will get some sort of association where our students can also contribute, because they are all energetic and full of energy to contribute, and many times they do not get any channel that how to do it, especially in this COVID times when we are at our own homes. Yes, Sharmishta, next question.
Ma'am, other questions, I think the participants may unmute themselves and further ask, because there is none.
Participants, you may please raise your hand. We'll unmute you. Then you can ask your question.
I think they're a little shy to ask a question. Not a problem. You know how to reach me, and let me know whatever query is there in your mind.
Ma'am, we got one question. What are the important topics in the field sustainable development of a pro-ecological new economy?
Okay, sustainable development in the field of the pro-ecological new economy. See, ecological economy is related to biodiversity conservation, and it has to do a lot with creating spaces, habitats which support life systems. So when we are talking of NDCs, which are nationally determined contribution of a country, afforestation is a very important input that every country is supposed to give in. So this will be ecological. But if we say environmental, of course, we have to reduce our carbon footprint. We have to opt for renewable energy sector. We have to create jobs which contribute to economic growth related to new sectors of livelihood. So if we are talking of minimization of fossil fuels, what are the other opportunities? The non-renewables, the non-conventional energy sources is something we need to invest in. Circular economy is, of course, the thing for us. So whatever we are working on, whatever we are creating has to generate into a meaningful resource. So these 3-4 things are very, very critical for a country to invest in. And of course, I would say, this is my understanding on this, and this is what I strongly believe, health and education need to be paramount. So only if we have a strong health provision, we have a strong education cover, we have a GDP, we have education covered by a strong input, a budget outlay, that is where it is going to make an impact. Because we have a very young population, and most of them, they are either concerned about the health, their immediate health, or the health needs of their parents, or they are concerned about their jobs. So when they are concerned about their jobs, they are concerned about the skilling opportunities. When they're concerned about the skilling opportunities, they have to be concerned about what is available in the market. So we need to channelize these into the new skill opportunities, create heavens of new jobs which are linked to the new economies which are coming up. The circular economy, the renewables, all of these fall into this scope.
Thank you, ma'am. If you have any further questions, you may ask.
I have a question, ma'am. Your session was so enlightening, ma'am. I have many questions, but I'll not ask many. I'll just ask one. That actually, NSS, we are doing a lot of community work. We have been going to the communities and working with them and making them aware about social issues, some or other cause we pick up, and then we do this kind of activities. So, ma'am, when we are going to the communities, how we can make them aware more about environment and these practices, small kind of practices like conserving the environment they are living in, or how we can do that? Because when we go in these communities, their priorities are different. So they are more like we face these challenges, that how we convince them, how we motivate them for environmental activities, or rather how to conserve environment.
See, Smita, there will be two approaches to it. One will be immediate. There, where there's a question of food, cleanliness and all, you'll have to link them to what is available there. Like you'll have to do a sort of a sorting of NGOs working in that area with whom they can be tied up, so that their sustenance is not an issue. Then there's a greater question of sustainability of environment and all. I would say your initiatives will be viable if you're able to link them to an existing welfare scheme of the government. So definitely there will be something under the control of a legislator there, where they see an interest of a government in doing something for them. So because how much can we contribute? We will have to be the intermediates between what is available and the people who need it. And of course, the immediate relief factors, the immediate interventions where the college has to work, you can adopt a park, you can do plantation, you can help them set up a water filter so that the water requirement is met. But on a long standing, if it needs to be sustainable, please try to link it to some government or a legislator linked scheme. Then even if when you pull out, they will know who they have to go back to. So that is my understanding. And I really want to have a longer dialogue with you related to NSS. So I'll do it later. So there I can see a lot of opportunities happening.
Ma'am, because we are also looking forward that how we can contribute more to the society. It is really required. And even it's not only communities, but educated communities as well. There is a lot to be done on both the ends. And we can return back to the society only when we are full of it. When we are full of that awareness, when we are conscious beings, when we are able to follow all those things, then only we are able to contribute.
Yes,
So
you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. So this has to be a very consciously personal driven agenda. So like it's like giving somebody information which they're not interested in. So let there be a demand. Let there be a demand, let there be a requirement, let there be a continuous reinforcement happening by education, awareness, campaigns. Once the pandemic gets over, please don't go and start walking into the communities right now. So let's have a very strategic plan of doing it, and it will be successful.
Thank you for the motivation, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I would like to propose vote of thanks, and it was really very enriching and enlightening session. Some things I'm sure my students will also agree with the difference between conservation and preservation, the words which we are using. I have jotted down all the points, ma'am. It was very interesting. And even knowing about sustainability science was a new thing. Students would definitely appreciate those things, because you have combined all things so well in your presentation that it was very enriching for us to enhance our own knowledge, and even to know that there is some kind of nature intelligence. And you are saying definitely in your presentation it was that nature is self-regulating. So some kind of intelligence nature is already having. And I'm connecting to one of the summary of a book which I have read about earthing, as it is Clint Ober who has written it, and he has written that we human beings are electrical beings. We need to spend some time directly in contact with earth so it can give us good health. So I was connecting the same thing, the nature is having intelligence. It was a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out time from your schedule and giving your precious time to us, and making us know about so many things all together in a very conceptualized manner, in a very clear and wonderful way. The way you have delivered it has been very nice. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm also thankful to my management, to our vice chairman, sir, our director, sir, Ravi Kanswani, sir, director general, sir, and Bhavish, sir, who are head of academics of School of Law. Thank you so much. Our management has been very kind in giving all kind of support in organizing these events. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine. We'll stay in touch, and all
Yes,
the best to the students. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Students, attendance form has been there in the chat box. I want all of you to kindly